Hey guys, I'm needing to get my thoughts and feelings out about this Charlie Kirk assassination that happened on Wednesday of last week. Now, there's already been a lot of things said on both sides about what happened. So I'm going to keep this video pretty short and sweet, but there's a few things I need to get off my chest. And before we do that, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below. But firstly, to me, it was just absolutely unbelievable what happened from outside of taking the political lens out of it, just the logistical sort of what happened on that day was absolutely unbelievable. The fact that this young man, a 22-year-old, was able to get such an advantageous position on somebody as prominent and well known for doing these types of events, these open air events with many people surrounding him. It's something that I think down the line is going to be looked at and talked about more and more. I think the raw kind of shock is still sort of reverberating across the country in terms of what happened. But from a logistical point of view, it seems like an absolute and total failure to protect Charlie Kirk. And I feel like it's something that's going to be talked about more and more, because it should never, ever be that the shooter was ever even able to get in the position to be able to put Kirk in harm's way in the way that happened, much less be able to actually pull it off, right? So that's something I think is going to be talked about. And another thing I want to touch on is this sort of, I don't know what to call it per se. The last few days, I've seen this sort of almost rewriting of history as to kind of the way Charlie Kirk operated and his sort of style of debating being kind of made out to be something that it isn't. And this is where, why I'm completely for peaceful protest, right, in every instance, because violence doesn't solve anything, right? Because now what we have is Kirk, in some corners of the media, his image is being sort of, I don't want to say whitewashed, that's not the word I'm looking for, but that's kind of the sort of same thing I'm thinking of, where Charlie Kirk's style of debating, where he would get these college age kids and basically gish gallop them. And, these kids most of them don't even know what a logical fallacy is, right? Much less are able to respond to it and point it out in real time, right? And when Kirk would go against, from time to time, people who were a little more kind of with it in terms of debating and sort of pushing back against the right wing talking points that, Kirk just so famously constantly regurgitated on a daily basis. I can't help but kind of say and think, Kirk was his style of debating, and yes, it attracted a lot of people because of the open air kind of style of it. And I'll debate anybody, right? The guy on the corner street, the hobo with a sign, or the feminist with blue hair, or any topic, anybody, right? That was Kirk's strength, right? That was what he did well. But quite frankly, a lot of his debates are pretty boring. And a lot of his talking points are just so utterly predictable and so utterly just not very exciting. And I'm seeing the media do this thing where they're saying, Charlie Kirk was this like fire band of a figure who was just, electrifying the conservative youth across the country, by synthesizing this message for them that they have never heard before, and unlocking new pathways into understanding of politics through his, unique and incisive um perspective. It's not what Kirk did. It's not what Kirk did at all. Kirk was he very much benefited from the right's use of the cultural war stuff as a cudgel against, really, really going all the way back to Obama, but then also, certainly Joe Biden, and certainly Kamala Harris, where Kirk was basically just sort of someone who was in the right place at the right time, saying the right things that the right found was beneficial in these particular elections. And he greatly benefited from that, right? His image, financially, his organization, Turning Point USA, greatly benefited from him sort of regurgitating ad nauseum, regurgitating the talking points, mainly the cultural war stuff. That transgender ideology is somehow taking over America, and it's a total lie, right? Or that there's some sort of, inherent moral failure in being a homosexual, or having this hardline immigration stance. Nothing really new, right? Nothing really like all that exciting or new came out from Kirk, but it seemed like, again, he was kind of the right person at the right time in the right spot. And to me, he wasn't really anyone who was ever coming up with any solutions to anything, right? He was someone who was very good at having a very loud, very big megaphone, and was very, has his message down to a T, right? Has his talking points down to a T. And he was going to use his very big, very loud megaphone to say his talking points, and to sort of push his sort of viewpoint of what America is, what it should be, onto a huge swath of Americans, right? But it wasn't that he was ever really doing it in this new or unique sort of way, like I've seen the media constantly try to portray him as doing. And again, this is a problem when, I think that Kirk, I wish Kirk was still here, right? I wish Kirk could still do his boring Gish Gallop debates, that are really not that inspiring, because I wish people could go and tune into his message and go to his events and hear him speak and decide for themselves what they feel and what they think. Because I feel ultimately that the vision for, America at its core, and Americans at their core, they ultimately do not the majority of us do not subscribe to Kirk's ideas, and we do not in our heart subscribe to this sort of vision of America that is for a certain group of people and excludes others. I really do not feel that. And when, now that Kirk is gone, and the only thing we really have is, all of his past stuff, but also now the media is doing this whole sort of hodgepodge kind of, we're gonna tell you what Kirk's legacy was, and kind of paint this image of him that may or may not be completely accurate. Because a lot of the times, I don't think a lot of the media really deeply understood or even deeply, um, Kirk is someone who's the internet age, right? Basically, and he's technically technically was a millennial, but he really kind of, to me, he kind of fits more into a Gen Z, sort of an elder Gen Z almost sort of figure, where the media just doesn't really understand Gen Z or millennials for that matter really all that well. And Charlie Kirk, in a way, he did, right? And I wish that he was able to still be here to give his message, right? Because ultimately, those of us who are with it, those of us who are able to push back against right-wing talking points and call them out for what they are, and call out the conservatives in this country for the damage they've done to this country, and how much they've suffering they've brought onto people in this country, and how much they've held our country back in many ways. Those people that can do that, they were doing it to Kirk. And I believe in my heart of hearts that the influence of people calling out Kirk's message and people responding to it was more than more of a benefit than the people being pulled into some sort of fascistic authoritarian view of our country, if that makes any sense. So ultimately, political violence, it solves nothing. And I'll show you guys real quick here. We have Donald Trump saying, in the days since the assassination, Trump saying that it's the radical left's fault for Charlie Kirk's death. And he spoke to NBC News on Saturday. Oops. Sorry, guys. I'll just read this here. He spoke to NBC News on Saturday, and he said he wants the nation to heal, but we're dealing with a radical left group of lunatics. They don't play fair, and they never did. Trump's Saturday comments echo remarks he made Wednesday in a video call from the Oval hours after Kirk was fatally shot. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund and support it, Trump said in the video. The president went on to list other acts of political violence, including the attempted assassination of him last year in Butler, Pennsylvania, but didn't mention attacks against Democrats, such as the killing of a member in the Minnesota House in June, or the arson attack of Democrat Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro in his home in April. So it goes both ways, right? And Trump decides to, pick and choose what political violence he's going to talk about. And then, Kirk unfortunately gets assassinated, and, everyone's trying to act like, oh, everyone on the whole left was hooting and hollering for Kirk's assassination just days or hours before it happened. Like, my whole point of all I was just saying there is that there's no one on the left that feared Charlie Kirk. There's no one on the left that ultimately felt like they needed to do what they did, do what happened to Kirk for some ends to a mean, that no one felt like that. No one was intimidated by Charlie Kirk. And it turns out, lo and behold, the guy that actually did this shooting was someone on the right. So, Trump is going to exploit this. He's going to use this as much as he possibly can to push his fascistic message and his authoritarian government and administration, and to go after whoever he sees fit. But he's already been doing that, right, up until this point. So, this is a moment where we need to all kind of recognize what's happening, in that the powers that be are attempting to use this killing of Kirk to further divide us, right? They want us to do their work for them, right? They want us to tear this country apart for them. And we absolutely cannot do it. We absolutely cannot do it, because it'll be the end of our country, right? And we'll be giving the elites exactly what they want in the end. So this video is getting a little bit long. I'll probably have more things to say about this, but rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. It's very unfortunate what happened. I do not think Charlie Kirk is a good person. He is not a good person because he was very brutally assassinated in a very public and an unfortunate manner. That does not make Charlie Kirk a good person. That does not make his message anything that was rebuilding or reshaping our country in any sort of positive way. He wasn't a positive, good person. But may he rest in peace. That's all I got for you guys in this one. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.